Do you truly know the secrets hidden in the art of 1,000 years ago? What if love, passion, and longing were whispered through painted petals and woven threads right under the noses of everyone? Prepare to unlock the surprising language of desire from the medieval era, from about 500 AD to 1500 AD. Number 8. The rose. In the tapestry of medieval existence, where life was often a harsh reality, the rose bloomed as a powerful and often subtle emblem, a clandestine messenger in the complex dance of affection and devotion. It was not merely a beautiful flower. Its very presence in a painting, an illuminated manuscript, or a sculpted relief could carry a weight of meaning speaking volumes without a single uttered word. The rose was a star in the botanical cast of characters celebrated for its beauty, its scent, and its layered significance. Yet, beyond its obvious charm, the rose held keys to unlocking secrets of the heart, particularly when one observed its specific hue, its stage of bloom, or its precise placement within an artistic composition. The spectrum of rose colors each carried a distinct resonance. Crimson rose, for instance, with its deep and passionate hue, was often understood to represent an intense, burning affection, a powerful yearning that consumed the very soul. Its velvety petals and rich color spoke of an unyielding desire, a fervent heart. In contrast, the delicate, ethereal white rose often conveyed ideas of purity, innocence, and a spiritual form of affection, sometimes even suggesting a love that transcended earthly bounds, reaching towards the divine. This contrast in color allowed artists to communicate different shades of emotional connection, from the earthly and fervent to the heavenly and chaste, all through the simple choice of a flower's color. Then there were the softer, more nuanced shades, like the gentle pink rose, which might suggest a tender admiration, a budding romance, or a quiet, sweet devotion. A gentler form of affection, less intense than the crimson but no less profound. The lycope of the rose itself was also rich with symbolism, speaking to the progression and nature of affection. A tightly closed rosebud, barely hinting at the petals within, could signify a nascent love, an affection just beginning to unfurl, still hidden from the world, but holding the promise of future blossoming. It was a symbol of hope and expectation, a love on the threshold of revealing itself. A rose in full, glorious bloom with its petals fully unfurled, and its scent at its peak, often suggested a love that had reached its pinnacle, a fully realized and celebrated affection, perhaps even a love that was openly acknowledged and thriving. This mature bloom could speak of consummation, completion, or a love that was robust and vibrant. By depicting these different stages, artists could imply a narrative, a development of feeling without needing any accompanying text. One particular iteration, the thornless rose, held a unique place in this symbolic language. Roses by their nature possess thorns, which can be seen as reminders of pain, hardship, or the trials that often accompany earthly affection. A rose depicted without these defensive spines might therefore allude to a love that was pure, free from sorrow, or perhaps even a divine love, such as the Virgin Mary's, which was often represented by a thornless rose to signify her immaculate purity and grace untainted by original sin. In secular contexts, it could hint at a love that was unburdened by the usual struggles, an idyllic and blissful connection. Placement of the rose within an artwork further added to its layers of meaning. In depictions of gardens, especially those known as gardens of love or hortus conclusus, enclosed gardens, roses were almost always present, often surrounding figures engaged in acts of courtship, music-making, or quiet contemplation. These gardens, frequently depicted with high walls or fences, suggested a secluded, protected space where affection could flourish, safe from the outside world. The roses in these settings reinforced the theme of blossoming love, romance, and sensual delight, a paradise for lovers. Common motif, saw lovers exchanging single roses, a subtle gesture that spoke volumes about their mutual affection, and unspoken promises. A suitor offering a rose to his beloved, or a lady accepting one, became a visible signifier of the burgeoning or established connection between them. A truly striking example of the rose's power is its frequent appearance in illuminated manuscripts, where it often adorned the margins or accompanied scenes of courtly life and romance. In a manuscript fragment from France, dating from the 14th century, a knight is shown kneeling before a lady, and she holds a single unfurling pink rose towards him. His hand is respectfully outstretched, not quite touching hers, but clearly indicating his desire to accept the offering. The delicate brushwork captures the soft blush of the petals, and the scene's quiet intensity hints at a nascent romance, a tender exchange of affection with the rose, acting as the silent witness and emblem of their mutual sentiment. Another instance can be found in the famous Roman de la Rose, a lengthy French allegorical poem that captivated medieval audiences. While a literary work, its numerous illustrated versions provide countless examples of the rose as the ultimate object of desire and affection. In one specific illumination, from a 15th century copy, the lover, a young man, finally reaches the rose, which is depicted as a beautiful, fully open bloom within a walled garden. He does not pluck it, but rather leans in, as if to breathe in its essence, a gesture suggesting the culmination of his arduous quest for love and understanding. The rose here is the ultimate goal, representing the beloved, and the journey to reach it is the journey of love itself. Fraught with challenges, but ultimately rewarding. The imagery in these manuscripts visually reinforces the profound connection between the rose and the complex, often arduous pursuit of affection. The rose also found its way into religious art, often carrying a double meaning. While a white rose might signify the Virgin Mary's purity, a red rose, when associated with martyrdom, could symbolize the blood of Christ or saints, indicating a profound and sacrificing love for humanity. This duality meant that the rose could hold both secular and sacred interpretations, adding to its symbolic richness. In a painting from the late 14th century, possibly from the Upper Rhine region, often called Madonna in the Rose Garden, the Virgin Mary is depicted surrounded by an abundance of roses, both red and white. These roses do not simply decorate the scene, they envelop it, creating an almost heavenly atmosphere. The white roses speak of her immaculate nature, while the red roses can be seen as foreshadowing the Passion of Christ. A profound and ultimate act of divine love. The presence of tiny birds flitting among the roses further enhances the sense of a paradise, a sacred space where divine affection blossoms. Even architectural elements, particularly in cathedrals, drew upon the rose's iconic form. Rose windows, grand circular stained glass windows, are magnificent examples. While primarily serving as architectural and theological statements, their very shape invoked the rose. The intricate geometric patterns, radiating outwards from a central point, often mirrored the structure of a multi-petaled rose. These windows, allowing light to flood into the sacred space, could implicitly suggest the blossoming of divine light and divine love, enveloping the worshippers in a luminous embrace, a spiritual parallel to the earthly flower's powerful symbolism of affection. The rose window in Notre Dame de Paris, though later than much of the pure medieval period, draws upon these deeply established symbolic roots, using the form of the flower to inspire awe and devotion. In essence, the medieval rose, whether crimson or white, bud or bloom, placed in a garden or held in a lover's hand, transcended its botanical form. It became a sophisticated tool in the artist's toolkit, allowing for the articulation of unspoken sentiments, the progression of emotional narratives, and the nuanced depths of human and divine affection, all communicated through a silent, vibrant language of petals and thorns. its secret lay in its ubiquity and its subtle variations, each revealing a different facet of love's intricate nature. Number 7. The hare or rabbit. Beneath the playful surface of medieval art, where animals often frolicked in the margins of serious texts or populated whimsical tapestries, the hare or rabbit held a surprising and often deeply layered symbolic weight. More than just a fluffy creature, this swift, prolific animal was a silent, often mischievous herald of passions and desires that might not be openly acknowledged in a society governed by strict social norms and religious dogma. Its frequent appearances, often in unexpected places, hinted at a secret language of love, fertility, and even illicit longing. The most prominent association of the hare and rabbit was undoubtedly with fertility and abundance. Their famously rapid reproduction cycle and their tendency to appear in large numbers made them natural emblems of fruitfulness and procreation. In an era where lineage and continuation of family lines were paramount, this connection was not to be taken lightly. When a hare appeared in an artwork depicting a couple, particularly in domestic scenes, or those hinting at matrimony, its presence could subtly reinforce the hope for a large and prosperous family. This was a direct, albeit unspoken wish for the flourishing of the marital bond through progeny. However, the hare's symbolism veered into more complex and sometimes audacious territory. Its reputation for incessant breeding also lent it associations with lust and unbridled carnal desire. Unlike the more refined courtly symbols of affection, the hare could whisper of a raw, primal attraction, a fervent longing that was perhaps less about spiritual union and more about physical passion. This aspect often made its appearance intriguing, as it could suggest hidden desires or a subcurrent of sensuality that was not overtly stated, but undeniably present. In some instances, particularly in the marginalia of illuminated manuscripts, the hare was depicted in a way that directly alluded to such themes, sometimes in humorous or even scandalous context that would have been understood by the knowing observer. Consider the margins of medieval books of hours, prayer books, often adorned with elaborate decorations. These margins frequently contain fantastical creatures, hybrid beings, and scenes of everyday life as well as animals. Among these, the hare made frequent appearances. Sometimes it was shown being hunted, a common activity of the nobility. Yet the act of pursuit itself could take on a metaphorical meaning. A hare being chased might symbolize the pursuit of a beloved, the often arduous quest to capture a desired heart. Chase was thrilling, uncertain, and full of effort, much like the process of courtship. If the hare was depicted as eluding its pursuers, it could speak of unrequited love or a love that remained tantalizingly out of reach. Particularly evocative example can be found in the Luttrell Psalter, a magnificent, illuminated manuscript from 14th century England. In its extensive and vibrant marginalia, hares appear repeatedly, often engaged in humorous or topsy-turvy scenarios. While many of these are simply whimsical, some scholars have suggested that certain hare depictions, especially when interacting with human figures or other animals in peculiar ways, carry subtle, imperstrained desire. For instance, a hare might be shown wielding a weapon against a human hunter, a reversal of roles that could be interpreted as a playful nod to the subversive nature of passion or the unexpected power dynamics within relationships. The humor served as a veil, allowing for the expression of ideas that might otherwise be considered too overt. In tapestries, especially those depicting gardens or hunting scenes, the hare might be found nestled discreetly among foliage or darting across a field, while the primary narrative might focus on aristocratic leisure or heroic hunts. The presence of the hare could add a layer of sensual undertone. For example, in a Flemish tapestry from the 15th century depicting a pleasure garden, where noblemen and ladies gather, a small hare is visible scampering in the foreground, near a couple who are engaged in quiet conversation. Its unassuming presence might at first seem merely decorative, But for the discerning eye, it could serve as a subtle reinforcement of the garden's purpose, a place for blossoming love, courtship, and indeed the potential for procreation. The hare's swift movement and its ability to quickly reproduce thus subtly infuse the scene with an undercurrent of vitality and desirous energy. Furthermore, the hare's nocturnal habits and its tendency to be somewhat elusive added another dimension to its symbolism. Could represent a secret encounter, a hidden love, or a passion that thrived away from public scrutiny. This aspect lent itself well to the clandestine nature of some medieval courtly love affairs, where affections might be deeply felt, but had to remain unspoken, or only hinted at through subtle cues. An image of a hare peeking out from behind a bush, or hidden in a shadowy corner, might suggest a love that dares not speak its name, or an affection that exists in the periphery of social acceptance, a hidden longing. In some medieval bestiaries, collections of descriptions and illustrations of various real and mythical animals, the hare was sometimes described with a dual nature, capable of changing its sex, which added to its mystical and fertile associations. While this belief was often allegorized for religious purposes in a secular context, it could implicitly enhance its connection to fertility and the mysterious powerful forces of life and generation. The hare's inclusion in medieval art was far from accidental. It was a deliberate choice, allowing artists to inject themes of fertility, desire, and sometimes even illicit passion into their works in a way that was both intriguing and, to the uninitiated, innocuous. Its seemingly innocent presence masked a deeper language, one that spoke of the primal forces of attraction and the complex dance of human relationships. Quick darting movement of the hare through the visual landscape of medieval art mirrored the often fleeting and hidden nature of these profound affections, a secret whispered through fur and swift motion. Number 6. The dog. Among the domestic companions in medieval art, the dog stands out as a powerful and widely understood symbol, especially when it came to matters of the heart and the bonds between people. Far from being a mere decorative element or an indication of social status, the presence of a dog in a painting, a tapestry, or a sculpture could convey deep meanings of loyalty, fidelity, and companionship, forming a silent testimony to the nature of the relationships depicted. Its unwavering devotion to its master made it an ideal emblem for steadfast love and unwavering commitment. The most prominent association of the dog in this context was with faithfulness and fidelity. In an era where marriages were often arranged and alliances were crucial, the ideal of fidelity within a union was highly valued, both morally and practically. A dog typically depicted resting at the feet of a woman in a portrait or accompanying a couple served as a clear visual cue for this virtue. Its calm, watchful presence suggested a steadfastness that mirrored the desired qualities in a spouse. The dog's gaze, often fixed on its owner, reinforced this idea of unswerving devotion, a commitment that endured through time and trial. A widely cited example, though slightly later than the strictest medieval period, but drawing directly from its established conventions, is Jan van Eyck's 1434 painting, the Arnolfini portrait. In this iconic work, a small Brussels Griffon dog is positioned prominently at the feet of the Arnolfini couple. The dog's posture, looking out at the viewer, but clearly within the intimate space of the couple, has been widely interpreted as a symbol of fidelity and loyalty within their marriage. Its inclusion suggests the importance of these virtues to the union being depicted in unspoken vow, rendered visible through the presence of a beloved animal. The dog's soft fur and gentle demeanor further emphasize a sense of domestic harmony and affection. Lapdogs, often small pampered breeds, also made frequent appearances, particularly in portraits of noble women. These dogs were not only companions, but also symbols of affection and comfort. A lady, cradling a small dog in her lap or with one nestled beside her, could subtly convey her gentle nature, her capacity for affection, and her domestic virtues. The intimacy of the interaction between the woman and her dog mirrored the tenderness and closeness desired within a loving relationship. For example, In a 14th century German manuscript illumination depicting a noblewoman at leisure, a tiny, elegant dog is curled at her feet, its eyes seemingly fixed on her. This detail enriches the portrayal of the woman, hinting at her gentle character and the importance of affectionate bonds in her life. Hunting dogs, while symbols of prowess and nobility, also carried connotations of devotion and partnership. A knight or nobleman often had his hunting dogs depicted with him, shedding his status and skill. Yet the bond between a hunter and his hounds was one of mutual reliance and deep understanding, a partnership built on trust and shared purpose. This dynamic could subtly echo the partnership and devotion required in a successful marriage or a committed relationship. A nobleman portrayed with his loyal hounds might, by extension, be seen as a faithful and reliable partner, capable of deep commitment and unwavering loyalty. In some medieval effigies on tombs, particularly those of knights and their wives, a dog is often carved at the feet of the effigy. This consistent placement, especially at the woman's feet, served as a poignant reminder of her enduring faithfulness and her role as a loyal companion, even in death, reflecting the ideals of marital devotion. The dog's protective nature also played into its symbolic role. Dogs were guardians, defending their homes and their masters from harm. This aspect could be subtly woven into representations of marriage, implying a protective love, a bond that shielded and safeguarded the individuals within it. The presence of a dog could suggest a secure and loving environment, a sanctuary where affection could flourish unthreatened. For instance, in a 13th century fresco from an Italian church depicting a family, a large, calm dog is shown resting near the parents and children. Its watchful posture, though not aggressive, conveys a sense of security and protection within the family unit, reinforcing the idea of a home built on love and safety. Beyond their symbolic attributes, dogs in medieval art also offer glimpses into the emotional landscapes of their owners. The way a dog interacted with a person, a gentle lick, a hopeful gaze, a comfortable leaning against a leg could communicate affection, longing, or reassurance. These subtle, nonverbal cues in the artwork mirrored the silent language of love between humans. In a 15th century French tapestry depicting a courtly scene, a lady is shown gently patting the head of a small dog which looks up at her with clear adoration. This simple gesture conveys a warmth and tenderness that extends beyond the immediate interaction with the animal, suggesting a person capable of deep and nurturing affection, a quality desirable in any romantic partner. Even specific breeds or types of dogs could hold subtle meanings. While not always precisely identifiable in the medieval period, the general appearance of a dog, whether it was robust and capable or small and delicate, could align with the desired characteristics of the depicted relationship. A sturdy hunting dog might represent a robust and resilient love, while a delicate lapdog might suggest a refined and gentle affection. Consistent and deliberate inclusion of dogs in medieval artworks dealing with human relationships. They were not merely pets in the modern sense, but active participants in the visual narrative, embodying virtues like fidelity, loyalty, and companionship. Their silent presence spoke volumes, communicating the unspoken ideals of love and devotion that were cherished within medieval society, a constant, watchful reminder of enduring bonds. The dog at the feet or by the side was a quiet testament to the steadfast heart, a secret emblem of commitment. Number 5. The bird, especially the finch or goldfinch. In the intricate tapestry of medieval art, where every detail could hold layers of meaning, birds fluttered across the visual landscape, often carrying secret messages of love, longing, and spiritual devotion. Beyond their natural beauty and melodious songs, specific bird species, and even the general presence of birds became sophisticated symbols in the nuanced language of affection. They represented freedom, the human soul, and the flight of emotions. But specific birds, like the humble finch or the vibrant goldfinch, often carried particularly potent and sometimes surprising connotations. The most common general association of birds in a romantic context was with the spirit, the soul, and the very essence of human feeling. Their ability to soar above the earthly realm linked them to elevated thoughts, spiritual aspirations, and the unburdened nature of true affection. A bird poised on a branch, about to take flight, could symbolize the freedom of the soul in love or the yearning for an unattainable beloved. Birds singing in idyllic garden scenes, often accompanying lovers, reinforced the idea of harmony, joy, and the natural blossoming of affection, mirroring the sweet melodies of the heart. However, it is the specific birds that reveal deeper, more nuanced meanings. The goldfinch, with its striking red face and black and yellow plumage, is a prime example of a bird laden with symbolic weight in medieval art. While primarily associated with Christ's Passion due to its reputed habit of feeding on thistles, which were linked to the crown of thorns, it also carried a profound connection to love, particularly divine love, and by extension, human procreation. The goldfinch's association with thorny plants, a symbol of suffering, could also subtly connect it to the idea that true love, whether divine or human, often involves sacrifice or endurance. Its presence in a scene with a child, often the Christ child, could imply a foreshadowing of future suffering, but also an enduring, profound love. In a more secular context, the goldfinch's bright colors and lively nature might simply suggest vitality and the vibrant essence of life and love. An exquisite example is found in many depictions of the Madonna and Child, particularly in Italian Renaissance works that carry on earlier medieval conventions. For instance, in Giovanni Bellini's Madonna of the Meadow, from the late 15th century, a goldfinch is perched on the Virgin Mary's hand as the Christ child reaches out towards it. While the primary religious interpretation links the bird to the Passion, its tender interaction with the child can also be seen as a symbol of nurturing love, the preciousness of life, and the delicate bond between parent and child. This domestic tenderness, seen through the lens of a powerful divine love, then echoes similar sentiments in human affection, highlighting the fragility and preciousness of intimate relationships. The finch, a more general category of small seed-eating birds, also frequently appeared. These birds, often depicted in pairs, could represent marital harmony, companionship, and the nurturing aspects of a relationship. Two finches perched closely together, perhaps preening each other or sharing a branch, became a visual metaphor for a loving couple, their lives intertwined and mutually supportive. This subtle imagery conveyed the desired state of a harmonious union where two individuals shared their existence with tenderness and devotion. In medieval secular art, especially in garden scenes or illustrations of courtly lovebirds, were often shown exchanging glances or even offerings. A pair of doves, well-known symbols of peace and love since antiquity, frequently appeared in these contexts. Doves billing and cooing, or simply sitting side by side, were clear visual cues for romantic affection, gentle courtship, and the tranquil harmony of a loving relationship. Their soft cooing sounds were even believed to be expressions of tenderness. In a 14th century French tapestry depicting a garden of courtly love, numerous birds are visible in the trees and around the fountain, where lovers gather. Among them, a pair of doves sits on a branch directly above a courting couple, their quiet presence underscoring the romantic atmosphere and symbolizing the pure and peaceful nature of the affection blossoming below. Birds in general, particularly in the marginalia of illuminated manuscripts, could also represent the fleeting nature of desire or the flight of romantic thoughts. Sometimes, a single bird might be depicted flying freely above figures, its trajectory suggesting the uncaptured nature of a wild heart or the elusive pursuit of a beloved. In contrast, a bird held in a cage or on a leash common in depictions of courtly ladies, could symbolize a captured heart, a beloved one, or even the constraints placed upon love within societal structures. For example, in a 13th century German manuscript, a lady is shown holding a small bird on a string, its wings partially outstretched as if wanting to fly. This image could convey her power over her affections, or alternatively the idea of a beloved who is caught, but still retains a wild spirit, subtly hinting at the dynamics of desire and control within a relationship. Moreover, the symbolism of birds could be quite esoteric, understood only by those familiar with medieval histories, which were encyclopedic texts describing animals real and mythical, and their allegorical meanings. These texts often assigned moral or spiritual meanings to birds, which could then be subtly woven into secular art. For instance, the robin sometimes seen feeding on thorns might also subtly evoke themes of suffering and ultimate love, drawing parallels to the goldfinch. The intricate details of bird plumage, their postures, and their interactions with human figures or other elements in the artwork were all deliberate choices. They allowed medieval artists to inject layers of emotional depth and symbolic nuance, communicating subtle ideas about love, fidelity, desire, and the human soul's yearning. A seemingly innocent bird might thus carry a profound message known only to those attuned to the secret language of medieval art, a feathered whisper of the heart's true state. Number 4. The hands, specifically gestures. In an era before widespread literacy and mass communication, gestures were a powerful universal language, and in medieval art, the depiction of hands became an incredibly rich and subtle way to convey unspoken of human connection. Beyond mere anatomical accuracy, the way hands were positioned, clasped, extended, or adorned could communicate secret symbols of love, commitment, and desire, speaking volumes in a visual whisper. These manual messages were often more potent than spoken words, leaving a lasting visual impression. The most iconic and universally understood gesture of love and commitment depicted through hands in medieval art was the dexterum iunctio, or the joining of right hands. This act, deeply rooted in Roman tradition and carried forward into Christian marriage ceremonies, was the quintessential symbol of betrothal and marriage. When two figures in an artwork were shown, with their right hands clasped together, it was an unmistakable sign of their solemn vows, their mutual consent, and their commitment to a lifelong union. This gesture transcended social status or specific locale. It was understood across Christendom as the seal of a marital bond. Clear example can be found in numerous medieval manuscripts of the Menatians, depicting wedding ceremonies or betrothal scenes. In a 13th century French illuminated manuscript illustrating a royal wedding, the king and queen are shown standing before a bishop, and their right hands are firmly clasped together. The detailed rendering of their fingers interlocking, sometimes with a ring visible on one of them, leaves no doubt about the sacred and binding nature of their union. This visual emphasis on the joining of hands depicts the importance of the ceremony and the solemnity of the vows being exchanged, making the bond tangible through this simple yet powerful gesture. Beyond formal ceremonies, subtle hand gestures conveyed intimate affection. A hand gently placed on another's arm, shoulder, or even waist often implied tenderness, reassurance, or a sense of possessiveness. This light touch, often barely perceptible, could signify a burgeoning intimacy or a quiet understanding between individuals. In a 15th century German altarpiece depicting a saintly couple, the husband's hand rests gently on his wife's shoulder as they pray. This seemingly minor detail suggests not just shared piety, but also a profound marital affection and mutual support, a silent declaration of their bond. The act of offering or receiving through hands was another powerful conveyor of affection. A hand extended with a gift, whether a flower, a ring, or a piece of jewelry, was a clear gesture of courtship, admiration, or declaration of love. The recipient's hand, whether accepting or gently resisting, added further nuance to the interaction. A lady's open hand accepting a rose from a suitor, for example, signaled acceptance of his advances and reciprocation of his feelings. In a 14th century tapestry from the Rhone region, a nobleman is shown presenting a lady with a small, intricately worked purse, his hand outstretched in offering. Her hand is delicately reaching towards it, her fingers slightly curved. This exchange, mediated by their hands, speaks of courtship, rituals, and the symbolic giving of tokens that cemented romantic attachments. A hand placed over the heart was a timeless gesture of sincere emotion, often indicating deep love, devotion, or profound regret. In depictions of courtly love, a suitor might place his hand over his heart as he kneels before his lady, a clear visual declaration of his heartfelt adoration and loyalty. This physical posture amplified the emotional weight of his devotion. In a medieval relief sculpture from a French cathedral, a kneeling figure, possibly a donor, has one hand pressed to his chest, signifying his pious devotion, but also in broader terms, his deep and sincere affection for the sacred, which could be mirrored in human devotion. The act of giving or wearing a ring, especially on a specific finger, was a direct and undeniable symbol of betrothal or marriage. While the ring itself is a symbol, the hand's presentation of it, or its prominent display on the ring finger, was the action that activated its symbolic power. In the visual narrative, the artist's emphasis on the hand, sometimes even exaggerating its position or size, drew the viewer's eye to this crucial detail. Even hands performing everyday tasks could be imbued with symbolic meaning when placed in a romantic context. Hands engaged in shared labor, like weaving together or holding a common object, suggested a life shared, a partnership in daily existence that reinforced the idea of a loving cooperative union. For example, in a domestic scene from a 15th century Flemish painting, a husband and wife are seated at a table, and their hands are subtly close, one perhaps resting on the other's, or both reaching for a shared item. This proximity and quiet interaction of their hands denote a comfortable intimacy and shared life. Careful rendering of hands, with their elegant fingers, delicate gestures, and often prominent positions within the composition, shows that medieval artists paid close attention to their expressive potential. They understood that the language of hands could convey the most intimate sentiments without recourse to words, allowing for a nuanced and deeply personal portrayal of love. The subtle movement of fingers, the delicate touch, or the firm clasp, all contributed to a secret vocabulary that spoke directly to the heart, making visible the invisible bonds of affection and commitment. Number 3. The ring. In the glittering array of medieval adornments, the ring held a uniquely potent and undeniably central place as a silent yet powerful symbol of love and commitment. Far more than a mere piece of jewelry, the ring in medieval art, whether presented in a solemn ceremony or discreetly exchanged, carry profound messages of betrothal, marriage, and enduring affection. Its circular, unbroken form inherently symbolized eternity and endless love, a bond without beginning or end. The most straightforward and widely recognized use of the ring in medieval art was its depiction within scenes of betrothal and marriage. The act of placing a ring on the finger of a beloved was the defining moment of a formal agreement to marry, a public declaration of an unbreakable bond. Artists consistently emphasized this moment, drawing the viewer's eye to the hands and the gleaming circle being exchanged. In many illuminated manuscripts and panel paintings depicting weddings, a groom is shown slipping a ring onto his bride's finger, sometimes a priest or noble witness observing the solemn moment. This gesture, combined with the visible presence of the ring, left no ambiguity about the nature of the relationship being portrayed. For instance, in a 14th century Italian fresco depicting the marriage of the Virgin Mary, Saint Joseph is clearly shown, placing a ring on Mary's hand, while a religious scene It uses the established visual language of medieval marriage to convey the sacred bond. The ring here is not just an object but the focal point of the union, representing a spiritual and earthly commitment. The emphasis on the hands, as discussed before, is inextricably linked with the ring's presentation, highlighting the duty moment. Beyond formal ceremonies, the ring could represent a more private or secret token of affection. A lover might give a ring to his beloved as a pledge of loyalty, or a symbol of his exclusive devotion, even before a formal betrothal. These rings might be simple bands or elaborately decorated pieces, sometimes bearing inscriptions known as poesy rings, from poesy, meaning a short verse. These verses, often in French or Latin, were typically sentiments of love, devotion, or fidelity, legible only to the wearer and perhaps the giver. While poesy rings gained popularity slightly later, in the medieval period, the concept of a ring carrying a personal secret message of love was deeply ingrained. When depicted in art, such a ring, if visible, could hint at a deeper, unspoken connection between figures. A lady in a portrait might display a ring prominently on her finger, perhaps even tracing it with her other hand, signaling a bond that was cherished, or possibly a secret engagement known only to an intimate circle. The material of the ring itself could also add to its symbolic weight. Gold symbolized purity and preciousness, signifying a love that was invaluable and lasting. Gemstones, if visible, could also carry specific meanings, though these were more varied and often relied on esoteric knowledge. The ring's circular form was a fundamental aspect of its symbolism. A circle has no beginning and no end, making it an ideal metaphor for eternal love and an unbreakable vow. This permanence was highly valued in medieval society, where marriage was a sacrament and a lifelong commitment. When a ring appeared in funerary art, such as on the effigy of a deceased spouse, it served as a poignant reminder of the enduring bond that death could not sever, a testament to a love that continued even beyond earthly life. A 15th century tomb effigy of a noblewoman in England clearly shows a ring on her left hand, symbolizing her fidelity and marital status, even in repose, reinforcing the eternal nature of her union. The absence of a ring could also be symbolically significant. A widow or a woman who had taken religious vows might be depicted without a ring, indicating her changed status, or perhaps her spiritual marriage to Christ. This contrast further highlights the ring's function as a clear indicator of marital or betrothal status. In the context of courtly love, where affections were often unspoken or idealized, a ring could be a tangible representation of the knight's devotion to his lady. Even if the love was platonic or unattainable, the offering and acceptance of a ring could signify a profound and exclusive spiritual bond, a commitment to a singular affection. The ring became a physical manifestation of an emotional pledge. The artistic depiction of the ring often involved careful attention to its design, its gleam, and its placement on the hand. Artists would often subtly emphasize the ring, making it a focal point despite its small size, drawing the viewer's attention to this crucial detail. Its presence could speak volumes about the identity of the person depicted, their relationship status, and the emotional landscape of the scene. The ring, then, was not just an ornament. It was a condensed narrative of love, commitment, and eternity, whispered through the glimmer of metal on a finger, a secret known by all who understood the language of medieval symbolism. Number 2. The girdle, or belt. Among the seemingly innocuous elements of medieval attire, the girdle or belt stands out as a surprisingly potent and multifaceted symbol, frequently carrying secret messages of love, chastity, and sometimes even the promise of intimacy. Far from being merely a functional garment for holding up clothing or attaching tools, the girdle was intimately connected with a woman's body, her modesty and her status, making it a powerful visual code in the intricate language of medieval art. Presence, its absence, or its manner of being worn could speak volumes about a woman's virtues, her affections, and the nature of her relationships. The primary association of the girdle, particularly for women, was with chastity and modesty. In medieval society, a woman's virtue was paramount, and her garments often reflected this ideal. Tightly cinched girdle, neatly fastened around the waist, could visually represent a woman's controlled desires, her purity, and her moral uprightness. It suggested a restrained and virtuous character, highly valued in a potential bride. This symbolism was so pervasive that even in religious art, the Virgin Mary was sometimes depicted with a simple yet prominent girdle, reinforcing her immaculate purity. In a 13th century illuminated manuscript depicting a virtuous lady, her high-waisted gown is meticulously cinched with a fine plain girdle, underscoring her demure and upright character, a visual testament to her chastity. However, the girdle's symbolism extended far beyond mere modesty, weaving its way into the romantic narratives of the age. In the context of courtly love, a girdle could become a highly intimate and significant token of affection. A lady might bestow her girdle upon her knight as a sign of her favor, a pledge of her affection, or even as a protective charm to accompany him into battle. This was a profoundly personal gift, representing a piece of herself, and its acceptance by the knight signified a special, often exclusive bond between them. Such an exchange, when depicted in art, became a powerful visual declaration of a hidden or idealized love. For example, in a 14th century illuminated manuscript illustrating a knightly romance, a lady is shown untying her elaborately decorated girdle and handing it to a kneeling knight. His respectful posture and eager acceptance signify the gravity of the gift and the depth of the favor being granted. The gesture here is clear. It is a secret pledge of love and loyalty, a bond made visible through the shared object. The girdle, therefore, acts as a tangible symbol of their mutual affection and the lady's trust in her chosen knight. The act of untying or loosening a girdle could also carry powerful, albeit subtle, implications of intimacy or the breaking of modesty. While a tightly bound girdle signified chastity, a loosened or unfastened one could hint at a relaxation of restraint, perhaps even the anticipation of physical intimacy. This was a very nuanced visual cue, often used with great discretion in art, but understood by contemporary viewers. In some allegorical or mythological scenes, figures associated with sensuality or fertility might be depicted with their girdles partially undone, a visual shorthand for their less constrained nature. The materials and embellishments of the girdle also added to its symbolic weight. A girdle made of precious metals, studded with jewels, or intricately woven from silk or gold thread, naturally conveyed wealth and status. But such a lavish girdle, when given as a gift, also spoke of the giver's esteem and the value placed on the recipient. A girdle with small attached purses or bells might signify domesticity, or a woman's management of her household, again connecting to her role within a marital or familial structure. Moreover, the girdle's presence could sometimes be linked to fertility and the hope for progeny. Given its close association with the waist and the female body, it could subtly suggest a woman's readiness for childbearing or the hope that a union would be blessed with children. This connection was often implicit, woven into broader themes of marriage and domestic harmony. In religious art, the girdle could also have sacred significance. The girdle of the Virgin Mary, a relic believed to have been worn by her, was sometimes depicted or referenced, linking the garment to divine purity and maternal love. This sacred association could spill over into secular contexts, lending an aura of sanctity even to more earthly representations of love and fidelity. The girdle, therefore, was far from a simple item of clothing in medieval art. It was a sophisticated symbol, capable of conveying a spectrum of meanings from strict chastity to burgeoning intimacy, from a pledge of unwavering loyalty to a subtle hint of physical desire. Its secret lay in its intimate connection to the body and its ability to act as a silent messenger, whispering tales of affection, virtue, and commitment through its subtle depiction. Number 1. The stag or deer. Deep within the medieval landscape where forests loomed large and nature's creatures held potent symbolic power, The stag or deer emerged as a particularly intriguing. Its graceful form, its elusive nature, and its association with the hunt made it a compelling figure in medieval art, often carrying secret messages of love, purity, and the pursuit of desire. Far from being a mere animal, the stag became a nuanced visual metaphor for the complex dynamics of romantic longing and the spiritual journey of the heart. One of the primary associations of the stag was with purity, piety, and the soul's yearning for the divine. In medieval bestiaries and theological texts, the deer was often linked to Christ, particularly for its reputed ability to cleanse itself of venomous snakes by seeking out pure water. This gave it a powerful religious symbolism representing purification and spiritual aspiration. When seen in this light, a stag depicted in a sacred context could suggest a pure, unblemished form of love, akin to the love for God. However, this purity could also extend to human affection, implying a love that was noble, virtuous, and spiritually uplifting. However, the stag's secular symbolism, especially in the context of love, often revolved around the hunt. Pursuit of the stag was a favorite pastime of the nobility, symbolizing prowess, endurance, and the thrill of the chase. In medieval art, particularly tapestries and illuminated manuscripts depicting hunting scenes, the hunt of the stag could serve as a powerful allegory for the pursuit of love and courtship. The hunter, whether a knight or a noble, pursued the elusive stag, much like a suitor pursued his beloved. The challenges, the cunning, and the ultimate triumph or failure in the hunt mirrored the complexities of romantic endeavors. Consider the famous unicorn tapestries, a magnificent series from the late 15th century, though drawing on much older traditions. While centered on the mythical unicorn, a creature closely related to the deer family and sharing many symbolic traits, the unicorn hunt sequence vividly illustrates the pursuit of an elusive, pure, and ultimately captured entity. The unicorn, often a symbol of purity and grace, is pursued through a rich landscape, and its capture and ultimate taming by a maiden are often interpreted as an allegory for courtly love, the pursuit and ultimate winning of the beloved through virtue and devotion. The stag as a real-world counterpart frequently appeared in similar hunting scenes, where its capture or the mere presence of a stag in a garden could symbolize the successful pursuit of love or the presence of a cherished beloved. A stag's elusiveness also added another layer of meaning. Its ability to disappear into the forest, its swiftness and grace, could symbolize a love that was difficult to attain, or a beloved who was out of reach. This played well into the themes of unrequited love, or the idealized, unattainable beloved common in courtly love literature. A stag leaping away from hunters might represent the heart that remains free or the affections that are not easily won. Conversely, a stag that was successfully captured or calmly standing beside a human figure could signify a love that had been won, a heart that had been tamed or committed. In a 15th century French manuscript, illumination depicting a garden of pleasures, a stag is shown peacefully grazing near a noble couple engaged in affectionate conversation. Its calm presence suggests a love that has matured and found contentment, a sense of harmonious companionship, a spirit at peace within the bonds of affection. The stag, no longer hunted, now represents the beloved, who has chosen to remain. The antlers of the stag also held particular significance. As they grow and shed annually, they could symbolize regeneration, renewal, and the cyclical nature of life and love. The impressive rack of a mature stag was also a sign of strength and virility, indirectly connecting to themes of procreation and the robust nature of a flourishing relationship. Proud stag in a pastoral scene might subtly hint at the strength and vitality within a romantic union. Even the stag's presence in marginalia of books of hours, sometimes whimsically depicted, could carry echoes of these deeper meanings. A stag being pursued by a tiny dog, for instance, might be a playful inversion of the hunt, or a humorous commentary on the trials and tribulations of courtship. These seemingly light-hearted depictions often masked profound symbolic undercurrents understood by those familiar with the visual lexicon of the age. The stag, therefore, was far more than a mere beast of the forest in medieval art. It was a sophisticated symbol capable of embodying purity, elusive desire, the thrilling pursuit of love, and a harmonious contentment of a one heart. Its elegant form and varied associations allowed artists to subtly weave intricate narratives of human affection and longing into their works, making it a powerful, albeit often secret, herald of love's journey.